What's up, guys? I'm Chad Barnes, and welcome to the channel. Here, it's all about real car talk, from simple fixes to smart driving tips and keeping your ride in top shape. If that sounds good to you, go ahead and give the video a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button and make sure you watch all the way through. There's a lot of good stuff coming. Let's get to it.
Beginning in the 90s, VAZ was engaged in the last hope on a one-volume, that is, all-wheel drive minivan on the basis of Niva. And this modification was not planned and, like many other things, appeared by chance. Rather, it was a search project, the purpose of which was to get an answer to the question, whether it is possible to make something completely new for the plant, for example, a minivan, on the basis of an ordinary Niva. At the same time, the safety margin of the ordinary Niva was unknown. More precisely, after a number of victories and achievements of VAZ-2131, it was clear that it was a successful and strong car, but could it withstand 1.5 times the load associated with the transformation into a 7-seater car with a load-bearing body? To answer this question, a pair of serial 3-door bodies was used to weld two 500 mm lengthened bodies of future 5-doors, with each of the sources taken only half, front and rear, respectively. Each of the prototypes received a very pathos name, Consul and President. These running models differed by the fact that the Consul had narrow rear doors that allowed loading sandbags into the body to simulate the load, while the President had no such doors. The tests were successful, which surprised the factory workers themselves. After all, the unexpected positive conclusions about the safety margin of the usual Niva allowed Togliatti to develop VAZ-2120, known under the name of Nadezhda at that time. VAZ just launched pilot production, PPI, but the 20th model was still frankly raw. That is, it was at the stage of plasticine and refinements, being not ready even for small-scale production. 29 and other figures. That's why VAZ had an idea not only to make a single-volume all-wheel drive on the modernized chassis, but also to establish production, albeit in small batches, of the extended Niva, which could become a real dream of a countryman. After all, an additional half-meter in the base could make this car spacious and practical, and the very fact of simultaneous existence of shorty and long wheelbase version was a common phenomenon for most off-roaders, including such giants as Mitsubishi Pajero, Nissan Patrol, Land Rover Defender and even His Majesty Geländewagen. 5 doors and a German license plate. What is not a cube? So the search project gradually turned into a small series car under the Index 2129. It differed from the familiar 5-door Crocodile by the absence of a pair of rear doors, that is, by extending the base and moving the rear seat. The designers kept the former small-door body. Subsequently, the commercial copies of the 29th were added to the modification 2130, which was distinguished by an enlarged gas tank. To be fair, it should be noted that it was not very convenient for rear passengers to get in and out. The front doors were still short. But in the interior, this car was comparable to ordinary Giuliani and even slightly exceeded them, which was not a bad achievement for an SUV with permanent all-wheel drive, especially against the background of the short 29th had the unofficial name Kida and was produced in small series in the OPP Avtovaz in 1992 to 1994, and on its basis was made several copies of a commercial version called Utilita. The shortcomings of the 3-door version were the reason for the development of a 5-door version under the Index 2131, where the standard front doors were supplemented by rear doors with a vertical vent and a small window in the new side wall. Another difference between the 5-door and the usual Niva is a step on the roof, which hid the welds. 31st from Togliatti. Unlike the 31st Volga from Gorky, the Togliatti car received a long base compared to the original Niva, but retained the utilitarian essence of the VAZ-2121. The base of the Crocodile increased by half a meter, but otherwise this car remained true to itself. The production of the long Niva began in 1995, and by 2009, more than 100,000 copies of the 5-door were produced. Retaining the load-bearing structure, the body received a number of original parts, but still for the manufacture of a long wheelbase. Car shorty was simply sawed in half, after which additional body elements were welded into the center part. It seems surprising, but such a semi-artisanal method in the conditions of pilot production was quite normal. Their service is both dangerous and difficult. The long Niva was also a collector. Lengthening the body by 500 mm led to a change in wheelbase from 2200 mm to 2700 mm, and the overall length of the car increased to 4220 mm, That is, Niva still remained in the so-called C-class, but became long by the standards of off-road vehicles. To soared and lengthened car was strong enough. A number of additional elements were introduced into the design, for example, reinforcements of spars in the area of front suspension stretchers and floor linings in the places where the gearbox and transfer case are mounted. Since the steering wheel on the extended car became heavier, the steering was equipped with a power steering system, which was later used to equip the regular short Niva. The old engine, even if it received 100 grams for courage in comparison with the original one, did not carry the car, which had grown heavier to 1,350 kilograms, the gross weight of which with cargo and passengers was already 1,850 kilograms. That's why the production of 1.8-litre engine VAZ-2130, which developed 84 horsepower and 132 Newton-meters of torque, was mastered in the OPP. Injector for 15 years has been the only variant of the power system. This version received the index 21312, and because of the dark green color and long body with a relatively squat silhouette, the car was nicknamed Crocodile or Crack. Most of the long Nivas were painted in dark green or white color as a heavy fuel alternative was developed modification 21315, under the hood of which was to appear Bannerul Vortex Chamber Turbo Diesel 3431 with a capacity of 1.8 litres, but this motor never became serial. Having created the 31st, the designers did not calm down, because in the OPP on the basis of this model they produced the Ambulance VAZ-2131 SP with an increased by 300 mm rear overhang and a high roof. There was also a civilian version of the Ambulance with additional indexes 02, 22, and 42, which differed from the Ambulance by the usual 5-seat saloon, and the trunk volume increased to an impressive 1,900 litres. This Lada Niva was produced under the order from 1999 to 2003. In 2001, at the 5th Moscow Motor Show was demonstrated Antel 1, a prototype of front-wheel drive hydrogen car 2131T, which differed from the usual long Niva with a fuel cell power plant. In addition, a prototype of a 2-seat front-wheel drive electric van 2131E was created on the basis of the 31st by order of the Moscow government. However, in real life crocodiles drove only on gasoline. The 5-door VAZ-2131 was noticeably more spacious than the usual Niva, because the distance between the front and rear seats increased by 125 mm, and the long was also equipped with a 3-seat rear seat, as in 2108. A pleasant bonus was the gas tank, the volume of which was increased to 65 litres. Over time, a 1.7-litre engine with distributed fuel injection instead of the traditional carburetor was installed under the hoods of the crocodiles, but otherwise the 31st remained true to itself, having received neither airbags, nor air conditioning, nor power windows in the process of conveyor evolution. The concept of the car was simple and unpretentious, the same Niva, but longer and more spacious. The front panel of the 5-door did not differ from the torpedo of the short version over time. The interior became a little more modern, but frequent levers and typical Jiguliov buttons as if take the inhabitants of the salon to the late 70s. Until 2006, the 5-door car was officially designated as VAZ-2131, after, as Lada 4x45D. Having kept the features of ergonomics of the driver's seat, created in the first half of the 70s, this car has carried through the years and historical benefits for the occupants of the second row, its own doors, a reserve in the legs because of the long wheelbase and a more comfortable rear seat. As for geometric cross-country ability, it has worsened in comparison with the short Niva, which is not surprising at all, because the increase in length came just on the distance between the axles. However, it remained quite sufficient to overcome the muddy ground on the way to the Dacia, because the transmission potential of the car has not changed. Another minus is the increased turning radius, which was also absolutely normal by the standards of the class. The 5-door model has turned from a small-scale project created by the OPP into a full-fledged serial car. In 2006, about 30,000 shorts and more than 11,000 5-door cars Lada 4x4 were produced, and by 2009 the total number of produced crocodiles reached 100,000 copies. For more than a quarter of a century this model is present in the model range of the plant, but earlier this year there was information that due to relatively low demand and the presence of a more modern 5-door alternative in the form of the former Schneeva at the end of 2021 production of Lada Niva Legend 5D, which is how it is now officially called VAZ-2131, will be discontinued. There is no official confirmation from VAZ about the fate of the 31st, but from the economic point of view, sending the 5-door to the retirement of the first looks quite logical. In conclusion, the VAZ-2131 stands as a testament to innovative design and engineering, reflecting the evolution of automotive technology over the years. With its unique features and practical enhancements, this vehicle not only met the demands of its time but also left a lasting impact on the automotive landscape. As we look back at its history, we appreciate how the VAZ-2131 has shaped the way we think about utility and versatility in car design. Thank you for joining us on this journey through the fascinating story of the VAZ-2131.